this, and I've seen people like, oh, you're killing his confidence, and he needs more time. It's like we literally. I would probably be more patient with General Blazer fan if we hadn't literally just gotten through this with Scoot Henderson. Scoot was not good.
Mm-hmm.
He was not doing what was asked of him. He was moved to the bench, and his role was reduced drastically. Scoot Henderson had a come to coach moment and realized it's on him. He is a professional athlete. It is on him to excel in the minutes that he gets. And when he gets those minutes and he excels, even if he makes mistakes, he will be rewarded.
Yep.
What did Scoot Henderson play last night? Was it 30 minutes? Yes.
Yes, it was.
Was he
Did
in
he
the
get to
closing?
30?
Yes.
Yeah.
Was he in the closing lineup?
30 on the dot? Yes, he was.
Even with 6 turnovers last night, he was there. Why?
Because he gives a damn.
And he was doing the things that were asked of him.
Yeah.
And when Scoot was struggling, he would have these 5-6 turnover nights while not being productive on the offensive end, while being a god-awful defender, and just making poor decisions over and over and over again, right? Even with those 6 turnovers last night, when he was making, when those turnovers occurred, you could at least understand the process. I don't want to see 6 turnovers from anyone.
No.
But if you understand what they were trying to do and they made a mistake, they drove too deep, or they hesitated on a pass before letting it go, those are things you can go look at the film and go, look, the process was right, the execution was poor.
Mm-hmm.
You can live with those, particularly for young guys developing. Those are the mistakes you want to see guys make. You go, okay, let's not make those same mistakes over and over again. But Scoot's production last night, 17 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds on top of those 6 turnovers, while being efficient from the field. 7 of 15 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. Didn't get to the free throw line, which I thought was a little bit weird. Because he's a guy that's been making a living there recently.
Well, they seem to abandon ship, thinking that like Walker Kessler was there to protect the rim at times.
It was a little weird. Like, Kyle Filipowski's got
just be
T-Rex
like,
arms, man. He's not bothering shots.
He was making them.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, 4 of 4 from 3. I was like, okay, Flip, calm down. But Shaedon was objectively not good last night.
And it's been a long stretch too, where you've seen this from Shaedon Sharpe, and it can be a roller coaster with him.
Yeah, and I'm telling you right now, if Shaedon Sharpe, in whatever minutes he got, went out there and balled out, he would get more minutes. He would get more opportunities. If you look at what looking at like the tracking data and stuff like that, he's not taking advantage of the opportunities that he gets. Offense or defense.
I look at the Charlotte game, though, and I think this may be where some people are coming from, is like the game-to-game thing. That Charlotte game, he did look like he was productive.
Yeah.
But it was only, he played 2 more minutes in that game, and it didn't look like...
They didn't play really anybody in the fourth quarter, and you don't want to... You're not getting the data, quote-unquote, that everybody wants on Shaedon Sharpe, watching him play 10 more minutes in the fourth quarter against Charlotte when you're up 50 points.
But wouldn't that just be, hey, minutes that matter, if we're trying to get through to you, this is how we get through to you? Like, you've been idle and basically watching for long stretches. Like, that would be the time where you're like, okay, we'll get him his 30 minutes. They did against in Denver. They did against the Nuggets, where he played 30 minutes in that game.
Yeah.
But
the Charlotte game is a wholly different thing, because when it gets that out of control, it becomes no one else is playing. You're going to throw Chris. You're going to throw Roops. You're going to throw Wap. You're going to throw Delano. Like, that's where those guys, that when you're further down the bench, when the games get out of hand like that, that's when they get their minutes.
Yeah.
That's how that's always going to work, regardless, when you look at those situations. Like that's a wholly different thing. And
who played in that fourth quarter, though? Which guards played in the fourth quarter of that Charlotte game?
I think Scoot ended up playing some minutes in that game. Let me pull it up. I've got it in my little tracker right here. Let's see. Total minutes played. Chris played the entire quarter. Delano played 11. Watt played almost 11. Jabari played 10. Roops played 9. Yeah, Scoot played 3 and Shaedon played 3.
Okay.
So they got a couple minutes of like, all right, and then I think they checked out with 43 points, 43-point lead.
Seems like a good lead.
They're not going to play in those games.
No.
Like that's just, they've graduated beyond that, regardless of what position Shaedon is in right now.
But yeah, and that's the thing though, is that has Shaedon Sharpe graduated from that? Because
he's not Roops or Wap or a fringe guy in the development cycle.
But when you have a guy that has been sent to the bench because of whether it's effort or, prowess on the defensive end.
Mhm.
You can take both of those because we've seen both be a large factor with
Yes.
him, right? It's the effort and then just the ability to do it, right? It's something that he hasn't done. Like, I think that's where you go, the fans are like, well, just give him minutes, let him play, let him work through some stuff out there, even if it is in garbage time.
It's
right?
not about him working through stuff. It's about his effort, his intensity, and his focus.
Well, I think that is something that
It's not about getting a rhythm, though. You go out there with
hold on.
intentionality.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
But being out there with that in that game, it looked like he had that intentionality, right? And that's
Sure.
just what people are complaining about and what they want to see.
Here-
Last night was a different animal because you didn't see that. You didn't see him go out and play like he
was
did.
floating through the game.
And that is the frustration of, you really want to see that for 25 minutes a night?
No, and
I don't think you do.
No, and they're different players. They have different roles. They have different responsibilities and different expectations. But the mentality that Jabari Walker goes out there with, not knowing what minutes he's going to get, have you ever seen that kid not give a damn? The answer is no, because he knows that his opportunities are limited. And I don't care if you're the 7th pick or the 60th pick in the draft. If Tuwani Kamara is the 52nd pick in the draft, he was a guy who was basically an afterthought. He is now very likely going to make an all-defensive team.
Mhm.
Why? Because his role, his expectation, and his give a damn come correct every single night.
Yep. It's part of being a professional.
And then when it didn't last year, he got his butt sat down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what, and everyone's like, why don't they do it with Simons? Why didn't they do it with Ayton? They did. Do we not remember Anthony Simons against Minnesota going 0 for 10 and Chauncey said, sit your butt down? Do we not remember DeAndre Ayton coming out in the second half of a game and being so lifeless that 30 seconds into the third quarter, Chauncey sat him for the rest of the game?
Yep. Well, and then there was a time where Chauncey went to DA and was like, hey, we're not going to start you in the second half.
We're going to go with Rob.
We're going to go with Rob. And he was like, yeah, I get it.
No.
I get it.
And that's the thing. Like, do DA, Jeremy, Ant, do those guys, Denny, do they get more leash? Yes. Because they've gone through it, and everyone's like, well, Ant's a bad defender. Ant's in the right place at the right time. Just because they're hunting him and he's not a good defender is not the same as not giving a damn. Go watch Ant. Like, everyone's like, oh, you're Ant's guy. I don't care. I watched the tape. I talked to the players. They will all tell you, yeah, Ant's not a great defender. But you know what he's not? He's not falling asleep off ball, getting back cut over and over again, not getting back in transition, not doing the things that are asked of him to be done. And I wouldn't care if Shaedon was just another guy.
Yeah. There was I think a lot of it has to do with where you draft a guy.
Sure. Yeah. Those expectations are going to come with that 100%.
But I think people also need to look back at, these were kind of the concerns of him when he was coming out in the pre-draft process, right?
Yes.
When he goes to Kentucky and he doesn't end up playing at Kentucky at all that year. And that was like one of the things, is like, this dude could be the best player in the draft.
Talent-wise, it's up there, man. Like, nobody's ever doubted his talent. But it's the soft skills.
And that is the one that you need to remember as you're going through every single game of this season, and why he's not playing as much as you would hope that he would.
Look, I wrote about Shaedon January 1st, about how Shaedon Sharpe becomes a very good player, how his path to stardom. And almost every single caveat to that was, it all hinges on his aggressiveness, his intention. When I keep going back to this play, because I've watched this clip probably 15 times now, when they played the Lakers. They put Shaedon Sharpe in DHOs for most of his actions. And the reason for that is his handle's still not great, but it gives him an advantage. A defender is trailing. Like, they're putting him in an advantageous position offensively. He turns the corner against the Lakers, and the Lakers have already rotated, and Jackson Hayes is outside. Austin Reeves is the low man. Shaedon Sharpe turns the screen from Donovan, gets into the free throw line extended, and just stops and kicks the ball back out. That's Austin freaking Reeves, dude. Go put it on his head. Split him down the middle. I don't care. But show aggressiveness. Like, it's not and the same thing applies to his defense. The intentionality and the aggressiveness just aren't there. I'm not asking him to be a a block leader or a steals leader, but be effective, be aggressive. Hell, if you make a mistake on your rotation, closing out hard. Like, just give me something. And it, like, more often than not, particularly in the defensive end over the last 6-8 weeks, it just hasn't been there. And that's why he finds himself in the position that he's in right now. And he's got all the talent, all the tools to make it. And Vancouver Ford text line is saying, why isn't he afforded the opportunity to make those mistakes? Because they're boxing him in on purpose. They want him to fight. They want him to be pissed off. They want him to be angry. They want him to show some emotion and go out there and play with his hair on fire. If he played with the relative intentionality, but the results weren't great, he would still get more time.
All right. Well, he's not right now.
It's on him. He is the one person that can get him more minutes is him.
Yeah. 503-864-6326. That's a Vancouver Ford text line. Shaq, Chuck, Ernie, and Kenny on Oregon State basketball. Next. Call Don't get your hopes up if you're hoping for Shaq, Chuck, Ernie, and Kenny on your Oregon State basketball broadcast.
Well, that's mean.
Well, I know, but Luke Fletcher, who runs the Ramblin' Roundup, okay, not associated with the Pac-12, but Georgia Tech, which is in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh.
Has said, I can confirm TNT Sports may include Pac-12 games in its streaming service, Max, contingent upon both parties securing media rights agreement. Of note, each event broadcasted on TNT would also be accessible on Max. So this is a guy who's Atlanta-based, and that's, if you don't know, where TNT
is
headquartered at. He is reporting that Turner may be involved, and that would be TBS as well, Superstation. So move over Atlanta Braves baseball.
And what is it? What's the other network that they have that they run the
True TV.
True.
Yeah, True TV. The only reason why I mention this, and this is like somebody who's not as dialed in or locked in as most, but the reason why I mention it is based off of J.D. Wicker, the AD at San Diego State, and what he said just yesterday.
Yes.
Right? Which was that there is momentum gaining, that the end of March we could see a media rights deal kind of put into place, and a team adding as a full-time member, potential 3 partial or full-time members being added at some point after that. The wheels are in motion for the Pac-12's new media rights deal to be in, and the Pac-12 to survive. And it could happen as early as the end of next month. And that is huge for Oregon State, Washington State, and the rest of the schools that are joining into the Pac-12 conference. Having TNT and TBS, if you're a Beaver or a Coug fan, if in fact they are part of the media rights deal, that's huge for you too, because look, the worst thing in the world is being on a bunch of networks that you don't know where they are, you don't have to find them, the platform is inaccessible. Accessibility will be there if you're on in any portion of your media rights deal, TBS, TNT, or on the Max app. That's actually really positive news if I'm a Pac-12 fan, of looking at that and saying, all right,
that's
there's
a
a home that
significantly
people know.
better landing spot than what they possibly could have had.
And TNT, as we found out during the college football playoff, they're starting to get into the game of college football because of the fact that they aired 2 of the college football playoff opening round games this past year due to the inventory logjam with ESPN and their family of networks. So if this is a small thing, it's just a report, it's unverified, it's not from one of the big movers and shakers of reporting like a Dellinger or hell, even John Wilner, who is on top of most Pac-12 stuff, but a guy based out of Atlanta is saying, that steam is gaining some momentum down the tracks here, the steam engine, and we could see the Pac-12 on the TNT networks, the Turner family networks, TNT, TBS, and or Max.
Look, it's a better and more visible landing spot than you possibly could have hoped for.
Yeah.
I don't think you can slice that any other way.
Yeah.
I mean, what other landing spot were you hoping for?
Well, it's better than just saying, what the old Pac-12 and Larry Scott was like the Apple deal, right? And being on like Apple TV. Mm-hmm. It's better than that, because is it on a streaming platform? Yep, it's on Max. Is it in a streaming platform that a lot of people do have too? And it's one that it wouldn't be like I have to just buy this and basically all I'm going to watch is Pac-12 sports.
Yeah, and you're not going to get the... With that package, you likely would have gotten a little bit more money. Let's say that the money stayed the same. It wouldn't, because the teams that are gone and the teams that are in now.
For sure.
But let's say that you did get that same level of revenue, or just slightly less. Let's say you got like 18 a year, something like that, right?
Yeah.
Which would be nice, but
which is nice.
Your distribution would be significantly limited in the sense of it is holistic and held in one place. As opposed to the TNT family of networks, which does have a wider audience.
Mm-hmm. And you're on TV and on the streaming, not just on.
You have multiple access points.
And look, this will in all likelihood just be part of what is a multi-network television package. It's good news, though.
Yes.
It's good news because
And you're not stringing together, like leftovers.
It's not the Pac-12 network where you're going to have to fight for distribution either.
TNT is on everything.
All right.
You're not going to have an issue where you run up against rights deals where a network isn't going to carry TNT or TBS.
Yeah, that'd be bad news bears.
Is there a channel more synonymous with cable satellite than those networks?
No, not in my mind. No. Well, I mean, it's like CNN and Fox News, but yeah.
As far as like non-news programs,
you tell me you're not going to sign up for Oregon State versus Fresno State, and then right after Shawshank.
Yeah.
Let's go, dude.
Flip it on the morning to Charmed.
Yeah, you just sit there and you celebrate that win with Andy Dufresne climbing out the poop pipe.
Yeah.
You're going to be like, you know what? We have reached the other side. We got this. All right, let's get to hour number 2, where we will have some NFL news and notes, plus some Wu-Tang Clan tickets. We have a new mock draft, and it's a doozy.
Oh, boy.
Mel Kiper Jr., where does Shedeur Sanders go, and who is going number 1 overall? Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
Hey, it's
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Jeff Rust with your Sports Center update. First on The Fan, the Trailblazers unable to out-tank the Jazz last night in Salt Lake City. They now head on to Washington, D.C. to face the league's worst team in the Wizards tomorrow night. The Blazers 25-33 on the season, 4.5 games out of the final play-in spot, and also the 9th worst record in the league. Over in the NFL, Seahawks GM John Schneider announcing 9-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle Jason Peters is retiring after 19 seasons. Steelers GM Omar Khan said today the team wants to get a deal done with wide receiver George Pickens as he is set to enter the final year of his rookie contract. Multiple reports say the Commanders have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade, and the Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir have agreed to a 4-year extension reportedly worth up to $60.2 million with $32 million guaranteed. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The original home of the Herd with Colin Cowherd. Weekdays 9 to noon, 1080 The Fan. This is Danny and Dusty.
It's not your problem, Doc. You don't have to mix up in this.
That is a hell of a thing for you to say to me.
With Danny Meringue and Dusty, the Fan Man Hera.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app and 1080
I'm your Huckleberry.
The Fan.
Hour number 2, Danny and Dusty with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for being a part of our day, letting us be a part of yours, whether it's on 1080 AM, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, twitch.tv/1080 AM The Fan, or the party people on YouTube, youtube.com/1080 AM The Fan. Let's party for 2 more hours here on this Tuesday afternoon.
Partying, but limited in duration.
That's right.
There you go.
That's right. Hey, right now,
Wu-Tang is for the children.
Hey.
hey, text KIDS to 503-864-6326. That's KIDS to 503-864-6326 right now for your chance to win a pair of tickets to Wu-Tang Clan with Run with the Jewels July 1st at Moda Center. You can head to 1080thefan.com for more details. We got Wu-Tang Clan tickets all week long. When you hear
Wu-Tang is for the children.
text KIDS to 503-864-6326, and we'll be giving away a pair of tickets every day to somebody who enters via the Vancouver Ford text line. I am excited for that. Wu-Tang Clan in July, buddy.
Yeah, no, are you kidding me? That's
Yeah.
a show I'm going to find
did-
my way into.
Yeah, they ain't nothing to F with.
No.
Mm-mm.
And Run the Jewels.
And Run the Jewels.
Like, it's going to be a good show.
Let's go. Wu-Tang is forever, but this is their farewell tour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anybody else, any other ex-boyfriends accost Method Man's daughter again,
Might have to.
he might
Might have to go out one more time.
one more time. Make sure the
You never
bank
know.
account stays right.
You never know. Mel Kiper Jr. has his mock draft 1.0 out.
Mm.
I'm calling it 1.0. I didn't see that. It's his pre-draft mock draft. There's some surprises on this mock draft.
You think?
And I think it's fair to go through and say, on the base level for what we see in these mock drafts, okay, it isn't necessarily how the draft is going to go, but it is more, what did the whispers say? What is the intel that guys like Kiper and Matt Miller and Daniel Jeremiah, what is the intel that they are getting on who the top prospects are? What are the biggest needs of the teams?
It's a mock draft, not a draft big board. It's a very, very different way of thinking.
And so
it's informed.
these ones are very rough, though, because they're going to narrow down.
Yeah,
And
and things will change, and there's smoke screens, and there's agents, and there's teams trying to jockey, push guys down, lift guys up. It's all psychological warfare, as it were.
And especially when you don't have a slam dunk number one quarterback or a crop of quarterbacks that could be those guys. It like this year,
You're not talking
it's
about
gonna
Caleb
be a
Williams
little bit
versus
different.
Jaden Daniels.
And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but Daniel Jeremiah did all right, let's put last year's draft class in with this quarterback's draft class. And he ranked all of the quarterbacks from last year and this year to kind of see where the 2025 quarterbacks would be. It's pretty interesting to see where he landed Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. with last year's draft class, which was really damn good.
Mhm.
But Mel Kiper this week, pre-combine draft or mock draft, Tennessee Titans #1 overall is going to go to a guy who's not even working out, Abdul Carter, Penn
Mhm.
State edge.
We've kind of heard and seen things leading towards this for the last, I would say, 3 weeks. That there's a potential for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
There again, the softening of the stance around quarterbacks, and it does sound like there is a pretty not significant, but at least sizable gap between how Cam Ward is viewed versus how Shedeur Sanders is viewed. If a quarterback is going to go one, it's very likely going to be Cam Ward. But we've also heard that seen that Abdul Carter is working his way up. He was going to be a top 3 guy regardless.
He's a freak, dude.
He's an absolute monster. He finished the season with 12 sacks? Yeah, 12 of them in 2024 and led the nation in TFLs.
Seems good.
And those Penn State guys, they tend to work out.
Yeah, they do.
They tend to work out.
If there's, and again, rumblings, whispers, what's going on, the Cleveland Browns select second.
Mhm.
And they have an anchor of a contract in Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
They are trying to get out of that
Mhm.
because he has ruptured his Achilles.
Medical retirement.
And then he also had an Achilles injury during his recovery,
Mhm.
which sets him back even further. There is a lot of smoke to the fire of they may be able to get out of this thing with Deshaun Watson. Pay him a big chunk of money, have him medically retire, and move on. That's why Mel Kiper Jr. has Cam Ward going #2 overall to Cleveland.
To me, that seems like the most likely scenario unless a team trades up to 1.
I also believe that Cam Ward going #2 is not an indicator that necessarily there's this wide chasm between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But Dion has already said there's a list of teams my kid ain't going to play for.
Well, I
And he's
would-
talking about
Yeah.
Shedeur, not Shiloh. Shiloh, you can play anywhere.
Wherever.
As long as if he can make it, more power to you.
Mhm.
But Cam Ward #2 to Cleveland.
Mhm.
Travis Hunter, he has going #3 to New York, which is a quarterback needy team. But I think what he is essentially saying is they don't want to go down the Daniel Jones road again of we have question marks. Shedeur may be the best quarterback there, but can we go and try to pluck off a veteran, whether it's a Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold or whomever it may be? I don't think it'll be Sam Darnold, but they may go for a veteran instead of a rookie. Okay? Those 3 picks, I mean, that's quite a far separation from what we've seen most of the initial mock drafts look like, with Carter 1, Cam Ward 2, and then Travis Hunter #3. Shedeur doesn't come off the board until 7 to the New York Jets,
Which is surprising considering the quarterback needs of the team picking at 6.
which is your beloved Las Vegas Raiders.
And this is a surprise pick.
well, in New York, like
Yeah.
throw the other New York team in
Yes.
there too that we just talked about with Travis Hunter. They need a quarterback
Mhm.
too, and that is a little bit surprising that you would see Shedeur fall to 7.
And the guy going in front of him here is Ashton Genty,
Yeah.
which the Raiders need help in the run game. They had the worst run offense in the entire NFL last year. Their run blocking was okay.
Now, if you feel confident and comfortable, you have a young tackle.
Mhm.
You have Jackson Powers Johnson on the interior of your offensive line, where he showed progress throughout the course of the year.
He graded out incredibly well by the end of the year.
You could be in a position where, all right, all of a sudden you're saying we have some pieces. Maybe we go out in free agency because we have a butt ton of money,
Mhm.
and we invest in our O line. And we go with whether it's a Sam Darnold at Aaron Rodgers,
Matt Stafford.
stopgap quarterback. Well, they have the $50 million that Stafford apparently wants from the Rams. But you sit there and you go, well, we can go out, get some additions to the O-line. If we get a run game, that opens things up exponentially for, whether it's Brock Bowers or quarterback balance.
And that word right there. He's not going to be the longtime head coach, but what does Pete Carroll love?
He loves balance in a run-first team. Well, so does your offensive coordinator in Chip Kelly.
Run the ball.
Yes.
Predicated on running the football first.
And they don't
then
have
throwing the
anybody in
ball.
that backfield I think that they should trust.
Right now?
Yeah.
No.
There's nobody back there that you're considering. There's no Josh Jacobs back there.
Mm-mm.
So I think is a stretch for Genty, but if you very much it's the same but different in the sense of when the Lions took Jahmyr Gibbs. Do you think he's the best player on the board?
Yeah.
It worked out really well for the Raiders last year in taking Brock Bowers. And if the way this draft has fallen is if Will Campbell is off the board, who you think is the best offensive lineman, and Mason Graham, who's the best defensive player not named Abdul Carter, probably on the board, is off the table. If you think Ashton
They will
Genty
go, by the way, 4-5,
Yeah.
according to Mel.
yeah, and if that's the way you think if that's the way this plays out, and you think Ashton Genty is the best player on the board,
Yeah. Well,
I wouldn't be mad at it.
Here's Kuiper's thought process on that. He said, I thought about Sanders here, especially given the link between him and minority owner Tom Brady. It's absolutely plausible. Give it another month, and Las Vegas might even be considering trading up for him. But free agency still has to play out, and any number of available signal callers could fill into this offseason. Oh, boy. Sam Darnold might be an answer. Justin Fields could bring upside. Russell Wilson has the Pete Carroll connection from Seattle, so right now I'm looking at other positions here. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
That and balance.
And again, things can change. I think the Raiders were probably going to go stopgap quarterback. I think that's the way they're probably going to end up going here. And if they can snag a Jackson Dart type,
Dude, 6th rounder, Tom Brady.
You know?
Go 6th rounder.
just do it all over again. It was simple the first time.
So one thing that really stuck out, though, to me about this initial mock draft, Mel Kiper Jr., with the Genty at 6, he has 2 running backs and 2 tight ends going off the board
Crazy.
before the first wide receiver is drafted.
Does that show that is that I should put it this way? Is it more indicative of this draft, or does that show a shift in the NFL?
I think it is in part indicative of this draft because of how heavy it was last year with that running back position especially, or the wide receiver position especially. But you have 2 really damn good backs because it's not just Genty, it's the Hampton kid, Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, who he has going to Dallas at 12.
Which is where a spot that Genty has been tagged multiple times.
Yeah, but so you have 2 good backs, you have 2 teams that are needing the running back position, and as good as Teteroa McMillan is, they don't see him as that top 10 type guy, right? So if you put him in the top 10, then it is a reach. But I think that Teteroa McMillan is really damn good.
If it plays out this way and McMillan falls to the Chargers, that's such a big deal
I
for them.
also think that there is a little bit of a change with both of those position groups in running back and tight end, and seeing a swing come forward, right, of value of those guys. Drafting a running back and a tight end in the first round means that they will get a solid contract. It's not like the days of old where you have to pay an exorbitant amount of money for them because everything is slotted, but you get that 5th year, right? You get that 5th year option that you can keep a guy in his prime at a reasonable number, and then after that, you can go off the board. I think what they're seeing is that running back value is going back up in the league as the pendulum swings back the other way towards a run-heavy NFL, not a run-dominant NFL, but you're going to see more run game be prominent because of the way that defenses are built. They're leaner, they're smaller, so you want to counter that with pound the ball down their throat, right? You're also seeing that, I think, with the tight end position. It is growing. I've said it forever. It's the most undervalued position in football.
Which makes it the biggest value play in football.
And so you have Tyler Warren going off the board at number 9
and he's
to
a dude.
New Orleans. Yeah, the Penn State tight end. He would go off the board to New Orleans at 9, and then
Loveland.
Colston Loveland going to Denver, the Michigan tight end.
And he's a dude too.
He absolutely is. Those 2 guys go before you see a wide receiver off the board, and it isn't even Teteroa McMillan.
Yeah.
That
was a surprise to me.
I think that this would be the perfect fit. Emeka Egbuka, 21st overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want a Hines Ward type receiver again in Pittsburgh, Emeka Egbuka is your guy.
He's the antithesis to George Pickens.
I absolutely love Emeka Egbuka in Pittsburgh. I think he would be lights out.
It's one of those ones that just makes a lot of sense.
He's a plus blocker. He is a great route runner. You have Pickens. You have now an underneath receiver that you can rely on who can do everything for you. That would be great move for Pittsburgh. Tetro McMillan goes to Los Angeles Chargers at number 22. Also perfect for them.
It wouldn't necessarily fit
That
the
would be a
Harbaugh
home run, man.
MO, but it would be a massive, massive get for them to have him and McConkey.
A big body receiver
Massive
that can go get jump balls. He's fast enough to be a vertical threat. He's not a burner. He's not Tyreek Hill, but he's fast enough to be a
Doesn't
vertical
need
threat.
to be at that size.
You need that desperately in LA
He's the
because you
guy-
have underneath covered. You got Lad McConkey.
Yes.
It's the opposite of Pittsburgh and what they need. You need a guy on the outside. Tetro McMillan can be that guy.
He's one of the guys that I'm interested in, and not like what his 40 is, what his actual measurements come out to be at the combine.
Big, long
Just
receiver,
like
man.
how big is he? How big are his hands? Like, because when you watch Arizona play, it was like a man among boys most nights.
Yeah.
Even in double coverage, it was just like, you're not going to beat me to this ball. Good luck. It wasn't Calvin Johnson, but it wasn't not Calvin Johnson on a lot of nights. It was just like, oh boy, you get this guy in a system, you get this guy with a big time quarterback in Herbert, that could be massive.
In this draft is a weird draft. You're going to see teams at the bottom of the draft, if it falls this way, they're going to benefit
Greatly.
tremendously because of the fact that it's not a star-heavy draft, right? You don't have a lot of those superstars at the top of the draft, or even like in the top. Like last year was different.
Yes.
Like last year's one of those drafts where we're going to look back and be like, "Damn,
Yeah, whether it's
there were
even
stars."
outside of the quarterbacks, you have the Brock Bowers of the world, who Brock might end up being the best tight end in the NFL going forward.
All of the receivers that went off the board. I mean, so what you're seeing in a lot of the mock drafts, if you kind of like go through them, you want to read between the lines. You're saying, what positions can you get starters that are consistent for you and stay for a long time? You get them on the offensive line and on the defensive line, not your edges, but your interior defensive linemen. You see a lot of those guys coming off the
last
board
8 picks
in
first.
all of these drafts, right? And it's not like it's this absolutely dominant O-line draft. It's a solid O-line draft.
There's nobody in here. There's no Joe Thomas. There's no Orlando Pace. There's no first ballot Hall of Fame. Like, no, this guy's going to step on the field and be the best offensive lineman in the league day one.
But they're looking at, can I plug him in? Can he be a starter? Can he be reliable? And there's a lot of those guys. And so that's what a lot of the teams at the top end are looking at. Now, bad franchise is going to bad franchise, and somebody's going to be like, Tetro McMillan. And they're gonna take him and it'll be like square peg round hole. Yeah. But teams like San Francisco at 11, Kuiper has them getting Will Johnson, who is the best corner in the draft. You could say what you want about Travis Hunter. The best corner in the draft is Will Johnson out of Michigan. He is. Travis Hunter is the second best corner, but it's everything else that he can do as well. Right?
Will Johnson is a ball hawk.
That is where you're going to see a lot of teams that are really good get a lot better if guys like Tetro McMillan fall to the Chargers. And you could see, as he points out, one Oregon Duck in the first round, Josh Connerly 26 to the Rams. Derek Harmon not in his first round.
A bit surprising.
That one is. He's getting a lot of praise, and rightfully so. He was one of the most disruptive and dominant defensive linemen in college football.
In the country.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that neither the Chiefs nor the Chiefs nor the Eagles taking him, considering what we just saw in the Super Bowl.
Derek Harmon?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a little bit surprising.
I think he went tackle at the end of his first round.
The Eagles I can see because they've got, I don't know, Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I mean, they still have him. They have the Eagles taking Walter Nolan, the defensive tackle from
Ole Miss. Yeah. And then
I bet you that's probably a coin toss.
Chiefs, they have them going Esri, the tackle out of Minnesota, which that makes sense because they need a lot of O-line help. Yeah. A lot of O-line help to keep that window open. So it's interesting to see. And look, that means Derek Harmon could be going one of the top picks in the second round. And you could have, if you're Tennessee, if you're not going to go the Jackson Dart route and get a quarterback there instead of the first round, Derek Harmon. If you want to bolster your defensive line in the interior, Cleveland, like that, you could.
Especially if they trade Myles Garrett.
Hot damn, man.
They need. Obviously, he's not an edge rusher, but you do need to bolster.
If you're looking at a 3-4 technique, Harmon's a dude.
I would say he
He's
can
that
play
dude
either,
for
right?
you.
4-3 or 3-4.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 3 or 4 shade.
Yeah, no, but I'm
he'll
saying,
be
but
there.
I'm saying, as far as front wise, he's pretty
I
versatile.
don't know if he's a true nose, but no, you
bump it
he
out.
can do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna put him in. He'll be in your front for show.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get to the Daniel Jeremiah thing because Cam Ward going 2, Shador Sanders going number 7 overall.
Mhm.
Daniel Jeremiah put this year's draft class for quarterbacks in with last year's.
Mhm.
Where does Cam Ward and Shador Sanders stack up to the 2024 draft class, which could be an all-timer when it's all said and done? Danny Dusty on the Fan. Daniel Jeremiah was asked to throw in this year's draft class with last year's and merging the two draft classes. How would he re-rank them? And if it tells you anything about how he feels about this draft class and how good last year's was, he had last year 4 tiers of quarterbacks. Okay. This year, there is not a quarterback that would rank in the top 5 of quarterbacks from last year.
Okay.
His first tier was Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May.
Yeah.
His second tier would be J.J. McCarthy.
Which,
verdict's still out.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily fair, but okay.
His third tier is Bo Nix, and he added Cam Ward below Bo Nix in this.
I'd maybe push back against that as a prospect, but considering the year that Bo had, very easy to say.
As the prospect, arm strength, Bo had it. Accuracy, Bo had it. It was, he's old.
Yeah.
So is Cam Ward.
That's true.
And,
Cam is not one of the young kids.
And I think the big knock on both those guys is Bo Nix was seen as a check down artist, and Cam Ward is a gunslinger, maybe gonna do something crazy and go YOLO with the ball, right? And those are complete opposites, but they have those flags that are like, is that NFL worthy? Like, can you succeed really in the NFL with that? And then in the fourth tier, he had Michael Penix Jr. above Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So you would have Cam Ward would be the 6th best quarterback in last year's draft class, and Shedeur Sanders would be the 8th best quarterback in last year's draft class, which was incredibly loaded.
Yes.
All of those guys went in the top 11 or 12 picks in the draft.
Jaden Daniels maybe had the best rookie year of a quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Pretty good.
And even after all of the pomp and circumstance of Caleb and what went on in Chicago, his numbers were incredibly good at the end of the season.
But if you're sitting there and you're wondering, like, why in the world wouldn't, the Tennessee Titans take a quarterback, or what is the apprehension of the Raiders or the Giants to take a quarterback? This is it right here.
It's a value ranking.
In that, if you even look at the guys who are below those top 3 in that first tier, those top tier guys, they went 1, 2, 3, right? And they went to teams that were all very, very bad, and they thrived. J.J. McCarthy, verdict is still out because he got hurt. We didn't see him. Bo Nix went to the perfect system, the perfect coach, and the perfect fit, and he thrived in that. And there were teams, more than 10 teams passed on him for him to fall to Denver. Michael Penix was we have a pick at 8. We have a quarterback already. We are going to draft and stash Michael Penix Jr. And he ended up playing late in the year because Kirk Cousins was so bad. But think about that. The two guys that Cam Ward is under in Bo Nix and the guy that Shedeur Sanders is under in Michael Penix Jr., they went to the luxury pick systems, right? Like where it was, there is no perfect system than Sean Payton's for Bo Nix. Michael Penix Jr., it was, we're going to let you grow. We're going to take our time. But we think that if you're healthy, you can be that guy. Because that was a big knock on Penix,
it was
right?
health. That was the thing that knocked him down more than anything else. It wasn't performance.
That's why evaluators are apprehensive about Cam Ward. And that's why you may see them not go number 1 or hell, even number 2 overall, is because those two guys, it is system dependent. If Cam Ward went to Cleveland, I think that would work. Kevin Stefanski. And
stylistically, it makes sense. 100%.
They're not void of talent in weapons. They have some work to do, obviously. They were just ravaged by the injury bug this year, and they had lost all hope and faith in your quarterback when he goes down. Well, before he even went down, you'd lost that faith and hope in him too. So you can see why there is this apprehension of this quarterback class because there is no Williams, Daniels, or May.
No, you have to do the year-by-year value slotting.
Yep.
Because depending on where you pick, number one, that ties to their salary. as far as their first contract. There's their draft slotting, but beyond that, you need to make sure that this is the nerdification of professional sports, but it matters. You need to, with higher draft picks, you need to make sure that you are getting value slotting, which is why when Mike Mayock went out and drafted Colin Farrell and Alex Leatherwood way above their draft slots and grades, not only did those players didn't work out because they weren't good enough, but now you're significantly behind the 8 ball because you could have taken those guys later and you could have prioritized better players across the board, regardless of positioning. You need to make sure that you're getting, and that's why it's like when you find a Tom Brady that late in the draft, it's not just or a Brock Purdy. When you find guys late in drafts that drastically outplay their draft slotting, it is such a monumental win for a franchise because you have to match those slotting regardless of position. But the thing is, because quarterback is so important in the most important position in sports, you talk yourself into this stuff over and over and over again.
This is going to sound crazy, but there have been these rumblings of the apprehension of, can Brock Purdy be the guy in San Francisco?
There's been talk about the Niners moving on from him.
If you were to sit there and say, what are the best spots for Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders? Cam Ward, it probably would be Cleveland right now. Shedeur Sanders, I'd say Cleveland, maybe the Giants, but I'm gonna pull the plug on that.
Yeah.
Cam Ward there, Shedeur in San Francisco. That would
Got
be
weapons,
exactly
got an
what he
offensive
needs.
line.
And you have a coach that will get the ball out quick, get the ball out quick. That's the biggest thing Cam Ward needs to get to. He needs to get the ball out as quickly as he possibly can because he held onto the ball for far too long. He's got Shedeur. Did I say Cam Ward? Yeah. Cam Ward, not that problem.
No.
Shedeur just holds onto the ball for too long. He would get happy feet in the pocket. If he had an offensive line, a coordinator, and weapons that he trusts, he could get that ball out quickly. That would be, if he were to fall to him, he won't, and he won't do it. But you could
ideally,
see it.
Sure.
And I don't think even if Shedeur fell to them, I don't think they'd take him because they know that they need to get cheap in a lot of different areas. But that would be the fit for him. If it isn't to the Raiders or the Jets.
It's a good place to land when you've got a bunch of other talent up and down the roster.
Yeah, well, and that's what but the reality is that's what both of these guys need to thrive and be successful. Yeah.
So, all right, coming up next, worst day on the web. I can't think of many worse places to be stuck with a dead body. How about at 30,000 feet?
Oh, what?
Yeah, that happened to a couple on a vacation. We'll get to that and more. But first, here's the Big Kahuna with Sports Center Update.
That's that Hawaiian burger joint.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Trailblazers unable to out-tank the Jazz last night in Salt Lake City. They now move on to Washington, D.C. to face the league's worst team in the Washington Wizards. That's tomorrow night. Blazers are 25-33 on the season, 4.5 games out of the play-in. Over in the NFL, Chiefs GM Brett Veach says the team expects tight end Travis Kelce to return for the 2025 season. The Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir have agreed to a 4-year extension, reportedly worth up to $60.2 million, with $32 million guaranteed. Steelers GM Omar Khan said today the team wants to get a deal done with wide receiver George Pickens as he is set to enter the final year of his rookie contract. Multiple reports say the Commanders have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade, and Seahawks GM John Schneider announcing 9-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle Jason Peters retiring after 19 seasons. He signed with the Bills after going undrafted in 2004 and later played for Philadelphia, Chicago, Dallas, and Seattle. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The ultimate basketball party, Fan Madness, is back. March 20th and 21st at the Stadium Sports Bar at A&A Sportsbook. More info at 1080thefan.com. It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
That sucks.
Tell you where you don't want to keep your bodies. It's at 30,000 feet.
Danny, these are not the way you want to start segments, my man.
Or is it?
All right, what do you have today? What do you...
A couple on a plane
Oh, boy.
flying from Australia to Qatar.
Okay. Oh, boy. Oh, that's a long flight. Okay.
Was forced to sit next to a dead body after a woman passed away on the flight.
Oh, no.
A married couple said they were forced to sit next to a dead woman's body for 4 hours on a flight from Australia to Qatar. They were on a flight on Qatar Airways from Melbourne to Doha. About 10 hours into the flight, a woman exited the restroom, collapsed, and died in front of them.
Oh, boy. And then they were just stuck there the rest of the way?
So they said the flight crew put the woman's body in an empty seat next to them for the remaining 4 hours of the flight. They looked a bit frustrated. They just looked at me and saw seats were available beside me. My wife was on the other side. We were in a row of 4. They said, "Can you move over, please?" And I just said, "Yes, no problem." Then they placed the lady in the chair that I was in.
Oh, my goodness.
The Airwave company, which is owned by the Qatari government, has released a statement. First and foremost, our thoughts are with the family of the passenger who sadly passed away on board our flight. We apologize for inconvenience or distress this incident may have caused in the process of contacting passengers in line with our policies and procedures. The flight crew would not let the 2 people move to open seats.
Why? Why?
They're dumb.
Oh.
If there was ever extenuating circumstances, if there's a spot in first class, guess who gets to go to first class?
I think
Ding,
that's
ding, ding,
it.
ding. You. Why? Because you just witnessed somebody die in front of you and just threw their lifeless corpse in the seat you were in.
Yeah, instead they got a weekend at Bernie's their way all the way from Australia to Qatar for 10 hours?
And look, for anybody
Nope.
eating your lunch right now,
Mm-mm.
you know,
I'm so out on that.
you know what happens when somebody dies?
They evacuate their bowels.
Yes. Like,
How far?
it's a
okay.
process that happens
This
over
is-
a couple of hours because everything
Mhm.
relaxes and things just, nature takes its course. But
Mm-mm.
tell you right now, man,
Mm-mm.
if you've never seen a dead body, number one, hope you never have to. Number two, it is a freaky thing to see right after it happens.
So was this person on the flight by themselves?
It appears so.
Like they were just a solo rider?
Solo rider. Yeah.
They weren't with the significant other or because I mean you don't want to be like, well, just put them right next to their loved one. No, that would be even
Also
worse.
traumatizing.
Yeah, that would be even worse.
The only thing, I'll go a little dark here. The only thing would be worse is like if you fold them up and like stuff them in the cargo bag, kind of a deal.
God, yeah, you did go
Yeah.
there. You don't do that.
I mean,
But there is a way that when you
it
could
would
be
stay
like,
cold.
hey, back row of the plane, BT Dubs, you guys are moving everybody
up
moving
a
forward.
row.
Sorry, first class, but your bathrooms now are being used by everybody else on the plane unless you want to walk past,
A dead body.
a dead body.
Yeah, you want to go full on Stand By Me. You want to see a dead body?
I never thought about what you do. Like if somebody passes in the air,
Yeah.
you would think that you would emergency land, but if you're going from Australia to Qatar, there's nowhere to land.
I mean,
Do you like divert and go to the next closest spot?
for what? They're
but-
not to be gross. They're dead, and it's probably better for the passengers to get where they need to get to,
Yeah.
as opposed to diverting.
Yeah,
a
I don't
couple of
know
hours.
about that. I think I'd be like, yeah, take us to, Delhi or take us to wherever.
What if you have connecting flights?
Don't care. In Qatar,
Mhm.
don't care. That's nope. Somebody died.
I get it.
And you're just like, yeah, no, you're going to ride shotgun here. That is awful. That's terrible.
The couple was actually, they did have a connecting flight because they were going from Qatar further on to Italy. They were going on their vacation to Italy. And they are now trying to salvage what's left of their vacation, but it's been a very trying time, as one could imagine.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that.
If
that
that's
is
if that's not
very
something
terrible.
you've ever seen before, it's a shock, man.
Wait, if it's say that again. If it is something that you've never seen,
A dead body.
yeah.
Like, and I'm not talking
so
about
are-
like in a casket. In a casket alone, it's tough.
You're sitting there like, hey, who here is comfortable sitting next to a dead body for the next 10 hours?
Yeah.
Oh, nope.
And even after they throw a sheet or whatever over the top, it's
Mm-mm.
it's
I'm out.
not great, Bob.
Yeah, that would be awful.
Yeah,
That would be awful.
But the
Those-
airlines is reaching out and they're going to try to, I would imagine, make right. I would imagine a flight from Melbourne that ends up in Venice ain't cheap. I can't think of many places you could fly further away
I can't even fathom how far away that is.
because it's a 14-hour flight from
Yeah.
Melbourne to Qatar, and
Yeah.
it's probably
So isn't that
5
what's that?
hours.
What's
from-
Portland to Tokyo?
16?
Yeah. So it's right around in that range there. Whew. Golly.
13.
It's 13.
Portland to Tokyo. Yeah, I forget Tokyo's
Yeah.
further up.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like the
But
Portland
it's
Portland
yeah.
to Tokyo flight.
a long flight,
that's a
man.
very long flight, and there's nowhere you can divert on that one. You're above the Pacific.
Yeah, well, what you end
Not
up
gonna do
if
that.
something ends up happening there is you end up diverting to islands, whether it's Guam, Hawaii, whatever else. It actually ends up being closer, as insane as that is, and then you typically end up flying somewhere else into like southern Japan.
Man, that's crazy. I would not like that.
You know, we talked about the monetary gain, as it were, for the survivors that lived through that plane crash that went upside down in Toronto.
Yeah.
What are you asking for? I mean, you're asking
well-
for your flight to be covered, right?
But at bare minimum, they're paying for
The flight.
and then I'm getting some extra
Little-
credit. I mean, I need to get
No, I'm
whatever that flight.
there and back.
Well, yeah, there and back,
Yeah.
and then whatever the equivalent, whatever price that was, I want the equivalent
Of that
in a voucher
Yeah.
for both of us.
for flights.
Yes.
Yes.
So
I think that's fair.
I want the round trip from Melbourne to Venice, is where their
Yep.
eventual landing spot was, and then I want round trip equivalent coming back my way as well. I think that's fair. I don't think that's too much to ask. You know, it's
Yeah.
not like a big kick in the shorts to
No.
the what is it, Qatari Air or whatever.
And
I want my $2.
100%. And Vancouver text line. So I guess they rightly chose not to drag the body all the way back to all the way to the back and chose the nearest open seat, right? So it sounds like this couple was further back in the plane, closer to the bathroom because they saw her come out of the bathroom and collapse.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that was probably the nearest seat as opposed to dragging the dead body back through the plane. They were like, yeah, there's a spot here. I mean, what are you going to do? Going to throw it in the jump seat?
Mm-hmm.
Drag it through the plane?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've never been on a plane with the dead body. I don't know how big this lady was. I don't know. I don't know anything.
That's also something you have to factor into this.
Yeah.
Because, your normal flight attendant crew, not usually bodybuilders. And it's not like
Yeah.
you can get 2 people in the row.
Now, are we talking?
But this is a flight from Australia to Qatar, so it's probably a very big plane.
Yeah, so it's probably a pretty big plane. So if it was like a row of, because if it was like a row of 3,
4.
okay, and well, no, I'm saying
Okay, yeah.
if it was a row of 3 and you're just like, we got nowhere else to put her, like right here. So if it's a 4, you have that buffer seat, obviously window seat now gone.
Yeah.
Because you're not putting the dead body in the aisle.
Well, it sounds like it was.
So you'd have to climb over?
Yeah. And they weren't allowed to leave their seats either.
No, okay, now I want more.
Yeah.
If for 10 hours I can't, like, you can't
4.
stretch your legs.
4 hours.
4 hours still.
Yeah.
If I can't,
I'm with you here. 100%.
I'm out. I'm so out.
Yeah, throwing the dead body next to me in the plane was one thing. Not letting me get out of my seat while they handled the situation. It's like, what are you handling?
See, now
She's definitely dead. Throw
Yeah.
a sheet over her, buckle her in. Going dark again. Do you duct tape her to the seat
well,
so she doesn't
no,
flop around?
No. But then it becomes like respecting the person that died. Like, this person's like, why not put her in the bathroom and close it for the duration of the flight? Like, there's a respect for the person that has just
You're not going to
passed
throw the
as well.
dead body on the crapper.
No, you're definitely not going to do that. But, and I think that goes to like duct taping them to the seat, though. That's for an unruly passenger, of course.
Well, and
who's
that's
totally awake
That's
and
100% a
alive.
real thing, folks. The flight crews, they carry the duct tape.
Yeah, Danny's been duct taped several times.
I pay extra.
Some places you got to pay extra for that.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, coming up next, does a all-time great, is he considering returning to the game to make one more run? Danny Dusty, Danny the Fan. Gronk madness, ladies and gentlemen. Despite having an injury basically limit him in every season of his career, he's kept himself in shape and is mulling a possible return to the NFL.
No, this is ridiculous, and I can't believe that this is getting any sort of traction whatsoever. This doesn't come from a reporter. It comes from I think the person that is doing that, his name's Cecil Lamey. He's digital talent for denversports.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's got a lot of followers, and he does a lot of Broncos draft fantasy football stuff too. But he is claiming that Rob Gronkowski is considering a return, and because he worked at Fox with Sean Payton and they liked each other, Gronk to the Broncos.
And his brothers had short stints with the Broncos.
Gronk is 35. and he has not played in the NFL in what,
2 years?
2 or 3 years. I don't. Gronk coming back, it may happen. He may do it. It's not going to be Rob Gronkowski that we've all come accustomed to seeing. He's 35 years old.
Yeah.
We're already talking about Travis Kelce, who is currently playing and being like, no, he doesn't got it anymore. Now, Gronk did go out on top, but Gronk, as you said, has always been hurt. Injuries are always
It's a part of him.
part of Gronk's season. And I don't see it. I do not see it. This is this time of year, though. We get it. But
You think about
it'd
the
be cool for Bo
comeback.
Nix, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Gronk would help an extent. Like we're not talking about Mercedes Lewis here, who's played 19 years, and it was the difference between him and his first 10 versus second 10.
The
are
way
very
Gronk
different.
plays is not. It is not conducive to him playing at 35 years old effectively.
No, because
Simple as that.
Yeah,
Simple as that. What are we doing here? Especially if they go and get Colston Loveland. Like, if they draft Loveland, sure, maybe bring Gronk in
Is
and
there
just have him be a
second tight end?
mentor and just say, teach him the ways of the world, Gronk.
Hey, that's exactly what just happened in
Teach him to
Seattle.
be a meathead.
Jason Peters, who officially retired, has officially already moved into the front office with the Seattle Seahawks
Ooh.
under the designator veteran mentor.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
He barely played for the Seahawks, though. You'd think that he'd be like in Philly, where he was for a really long time, but
They clearly value his presence.
did you see the flight from, I think it was Seattle to the Indianapolis?
No.
You want to know what the difference between working for the Raiders and working for the Seahawks is?
Oh, Pete Ryden and coach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a flight that had John Schneider. It had Mike McDonald on it, and it had Pete Carroll on it.
Mhm.
McDonald and Schneider were in first class. Pete Carroll was flying coach.
Must be that cheap owner in Seattle.
Well, I know it's the cheap owner in Vegas.
Yes.
Just Pete Carroll riding in coach, just being like, oh, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to put my Bubblicious in and chop my gum here. Nope. Private jet? Nope. First class? Nope.
Pete Carroll. Oh, you know what I see? Pete Carroll,
Economy.
man of the people.
Actually, he was in an exit row. So at least they got him an exit
There
row.
you go.
And he did had to verbally confirm that he could perform the
Yes.
duties of being in the exit row, which tells me he's got enough to coach
Yeah,
football. If
he's
you
got
can
it.
perform the duties of the exit row,
Mhm.
you can be a head coach in the NFL.
So it matters.
You've got to be of able mind and body to
Indeed.
do that.
Look, if game management situations, man, I trust Pete.
Sure. Hell yeah.
I leverage 2-minute drill.
Let's go. This guy flies coach like the rest of us.
One of us. One of us.
No, that's just being an employee of the Raiders. He's not one of us.
Damn. All right. Coming up here now, number 3, the changes that we have forecasted for quite some time. They appear to be rapidly dropping on the doorstep across college sports. We'll get to that and more coming up on Danny Dusty, Tinny the Fan.
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Jeff Rust with your Sports Center update. First on the Fan, the Trailblazers unable to out-tank the Jazz last night in Salt Lake City, holding on for a win. Now they move on to Washington to face the league worst Wizards tomorrow night. Portland at 25-33 on the season. That is 4.5 games out of the final play-in spot and the 9th worst record in the league. In the NFL, Seahawks GM John Schneider announced 9-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle Jason Peters is retiring after 19 seasons. He went undrafted in 2004. Steelers GM Omar Khan said today the team wants to get a deal done with wide receiver George Pickens as he is set to enter the final year of his rookie contract. Chiefs GM Brett Veach says the team expects tight end Travis Kelce to return for the 2025 season. The Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir have agreed to a 4-year extension reportedly worth up to $60.2 million with $32 million guaranteed. And multiple reports say the Commanders have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
The Fan is live on YouTube and Twitch. And now, Window Nation brings you on-demand videos. Watch Window Nation's window into 1080 The Fan. Danny Meringue.
I found 2 empty bottles of a particularly decent Chateau Noir Bordeaux 57 in your rubbish.
Dusty Hera.
You went through my garbage?
This is Danny and Dusty on the Odyssey app.
I find it particularly offensive that you use them to wash down an order from something called Macho Taco.
And Portland's sports leader, 1080.
I would never drink a Bordeaux with a macho taco.
The Fan.
It was a burrito machisimo.
I don't know if you're on Danny and Dusty. We're listening on 1080 AM, watching along on youtube.com/1080 AM The Fan or twitch.tv/1080 AM The Fan. We appreciate you. We love you. Thank you for hanging out with us on this wonderful, wonderful Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's never going to change.
On a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday. The changes to college sports, which we have been talking about basically for 2+ years, they seem to be coming to a head. It's not exactly a coincidence because as you have the finality of the court case ending up, hopefully April 7th is the final date for that. It doesn't get kicked down. The can doesn't get kicked any further. And with that, you are going to have the professionalization legally as it pertains to college sports.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all looks because the Power 4 conferences are the ones that hold all the power. And within the Power 4, the Big Ten and the SEC obviously are kings of that. But what's coming out now is you're seeing different sports kind of gearing up and arming themselves for individual structure that they perform in. There's 3 stories right now that all came out within the last 24 hours that truly could flip the landscape of college sports on its head. And all 3 of them are linked to something that has to happen in order for college sports to survive as we know them. And that is they need antitrust exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Because if that doesn't happen and Congress has to get involved, it's going to be really damn hard for anything.
It's a lot of legal cases
to move forward.
It's going to basically it makes everything challengeable.
Well, because if you don't have antitrust exemption, then you cannot put a cap on revenue sharing. You cannot put a cap on name, image, and likeness. You cannot put a cap on how many years an athlete can play in the NCAA. All of these things are currently being challenged by people time and time again. And right now, the 3 stories that are out there all are pretty interesting and totally different and unrelated to each other. The first one is that the world of college football is going to create an enforcement arm that is separate of the NCAA. And they are going to keep everybody that is playing at the FBS level that is opting into revenue sharing, they're going to keep them in check. And that's a big undertaking, by the way.
It is.
But it's also, when you hear what they are trying to do, if they get the buy-in, it's finally the guardrails that everybody's been hoping for in college sports. Because Brian Kelly opened up to Yahoo Sports, and whoa Nelly, he threw some hand grenades in the living room and went, deuces.
Yep.
Because last week we talked about the Big Ten SEC meeting. The ADs met, and they kind of went about how this is all going to look and laid out a plan. Well, Brian Kelly, LSU head coach, he said this: there will be real enforcement. It will be across the board, consistent enforcement with severe sanctions. They'll be quick, they'll be swift. I think everybody's on board with it. Basically, they're starting an LLC that will be the enforcement arm of college sports, which will implement penalties for all things from revenue sharing to restricting the number of transfers a program can add on each year, the fines of going over a salary cap, a reduction in revenue sharing if you do go over the salary cap.
A second apron, if you will.
Yeah, well, basically what they're saying is that, so if you go $1 million over that $20.5 million revenue share, your school can be fined up to $5 million, and you get $1 million taken away from your pool of money the following year. Okay. If coaches are in violation of recruiting or consistently going over revenue sharing, they can be suspended for seasons and fined millions of dollars. Okay. You are going to have the limit of number of transfers that your team can take in every single year. This is going to be one that's challenged a lot, because who are you to tell the kid he can't leave, right? That's already been struck down by the courts. Unless you have antitrust protections, you can't tell them that.
No.
And so you're going to just have all these kids just out in the transfer portal, and there's limits on how many guys can be taken in. So then you're sitting there going, no, there's nowhere for you to go. Kind of what we see right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
But to a greater magnitude, because they literally cannot bring them in at all.
Regardless of if you want to or not. And that's even beyond this, like the implications that this is going to. There's the Deloitte is the company they're bringing in to do all the research and check all the NIL clearinghouses, basically take all of the contracts that exist for payments via NIL or NIL adjacent, and have a database of everything. And then basically you would submit your NIL agreement with player X, and they would grade it on a fair market value grade based on all the data that they have.
This ain't gonna go well.
No, because isn't that the whole point? Is that, hey, some school somewhere else wants to value me more, and that's supposed to be kind of the free market, open market situation. Like, oh, it's not supposed to be pay for play. It's pay for play. It has been pay for play. It's been pay for play from the jump.
This would be something where coaches could be suspended, institutions get millions of dollars of fines. You can't offer up any of those things to anybody else. That's not, they have to be in-house before you offer any of these things. And the clearinghouse that they want to set up, good luck.
I don't think
trying to tell them like, nope, this isn't legitimate, you're out. But if the organizations all agree on it and they have antitrust protection,
I don't think
then at that point you could put caps on. And basically what they want to get rid of is the $8 million for a quarterback to come here, and we're just going to overpay you, and it's not for your name, image, and likeness. It's our pay for play, but it's not from our revenue share pool. And there does need to be a guardrail, and that's why all of this comes to, you got to make sure you have antitrust protections. Like, the Congress has got to get involved in this for any of these things to work.
Yeah. And even then, where do they go? When is enough enough? How are you to tell a company? Let's say the same things exist in the NFL and in the NBA, professional sports in general. Those caps continue to grow. Those rules continue to change. They evolve. You can't do that with college sports because of the constant turnover, because of the volatility. The market is very, very, very different. It's significantly less static than you have when you've got a 10-year league-wide TV deal where you can make projections and have an understanding and know where things are going. Where in college sports, there's way too many players. There's way too many teams, universities, programs, whatever you want to call them. You can't put everyone under the same blanket. You just can't.
But that's why you need the antitrust protection, and you need some sort of umbrella that you're operating under, right? The endorsement thing and name, image, and likeness, that's completely different. And this is where
Well, I'm saying they're trying to put it under that
I
now.
don't think the politicians are going to agree that you can limit how much money they make in a salary cap, and then how much money they can make on their
Beyond
endorsements and name, image, and likeness from a third party. That's where that goes out the door, because that would
It's a
that'd be like
non-starter.
telling LeBron James, sorry, you can't build an empire.
Yeah.
Because nobody's done it before. That's not what the market has ever said. Cooper Flag, how in the world can a clearinghouse say, well, I mean, nobody else has gotten $500,000 to hawk sandwiches at this place.
Or
but you're Cooper Flag.
or his New Balance money.
Sure. Like any of these things. Like who are they to say that we're going to restrict your earnings? That's going to be the tough putt. The other challenge, though, that is football related right now is Corey Colley, a cornerback for NC State. He is challenging the NCAA in court too, and this is going to be related to this and what you said, because the turnover is so high. He is suing the NCAA for a 5th year of eligibility. And this is not like a Diego Pavia situation where he's like, I played 2 years at JUCO. How can you take away 2 more years from me because I played at an institution that isn't under your umbrella? What Corey Colley is contesting in court is that the NCAA has arbitrary rules that, when they're taking into account eligibility, that should not be in place for how many years a player should play. We've seen this before. You play, 4 games and you can redshirt.
Mm-hmm.
You get injured. They're the judge, jury, and executioner on whether or not your career is over or not. He's just saying, you guys shouldn't have the power. So he's taking it to court.
Mm-hmm.
What we're looking at is this court case could be the one for a 5th, 6th, 7th year of eligibility in the NCAA, and saying, if I can't make it to the league, who are you to restrict me from my earning potential? I have earning potential here at the collegiate level, and as long as I'm pursuing degree or multiple degrees, then who are you to say that I can't earn money and play a sport? And there's a lot of legal people that believe
he's going
to win this thing,
because there's no precedent and there's no guidance that says otherwise.
And it is arbitrary with the
make
NCAA
it up as they
on
go.
when they allow another year. COVID, another year, go ahead. Injuries, Cam McCormick, who's
9
from
years.
Bend, he played 8 or 9 years in college football because he kept getting hurt, and they're like, yeah, we'll give you another one. But
Somebody else's injury is enough. And remember the North Carolina transfer.
yeah,
Like he sat out a year. He didn't play.
and they still said, sorry,
No, you
countsies, no
transferred
countsies.
twice, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
This is where death of the NCAA, this break off, things like these won't happen. And if they need those protections, if they get those protections, they could just run free. The third story in this is going to be massive for all the Olympic sports and non-revenue generating sports, because
Which is what we're going to get to next here.
Yeah.
The opt-in date alone for the settlement is 3 days. If you're going to be one of those schools, to be in
For what?
the revenue sharing,
Oh, okay.
that has ramifications for the non-basketball and football programs throughout the country. But you're also taking a look at seeing right now what's going on with, or potentially what could be going on with U.S. soccer and men's soccer, and the ramifications for what that could mean for the non-revenue generating sports. We'll get to that next here on Danny and Dusty, Today the Fan.
The
radio blowing out your watch. From Park Hill, the house on haunted hill. Every time you walk by,
Talking about the changes coming to the world of the non-football basketball sports in college, there's a very interesting discussion going on in the world of U.S. men's soccer, particularly at the collegiate level, but also the governing body. There has been a push for the last 4 or 5 years now, and really it goes back to 2000, but it's been much more significant since 2020, about moving to a year-round 2-semester model. And I think the reason why this becomes interesting is this, while it sounds like it's very unique to soccer, I think this is something that the other non-revenue generating sports can look at as a particular model when it comes to either international or national governing bodies, as it were, and how you focus on getting finances into those sports and development platforms kind of going forward.
Yeah, I want first of all, the 2-semester model is U.S. Soccer. The U.S. Soccer Federation is actually working with a handful of schools, 32 college soccer programs, to play basically a year-round model of soccer. And the 32 programs are basically, it's a weird cluster. It's like Big Ten and ACC soccer, with then you have a couple of Big 12 schools, and then Oregon State out west. You'd have 4 Oregon States or schools out west: Washington, Oregon State, Cal, Stanford, San Diego State. So five schools out west that would be playing soccer in this year-round federation. The 2-semester thing is that you would have a fall season and a spring season. And so in that, you'd have year-round soccer, building, as you said, building the awareness, building the brand of it, making it a bigger deal, and
also matching the international calendar,
breaking away from the NCAA by saying you get one season and that's it. If you look at like the international calendar, soccer, like in the European Football League, it starts in October.
Yeah, it starts in October,
and it goes all the way through May.
But you have 2 breaks built in. One you have around Christmas time, and then the kind of the transfer windows that exist across all of the leagues in basically Europe and South America, and then you get another break later in the winter, pre-spring, in less than an Olympic year, like when you have a longer break. But in those break periods, they afford those players to go play for their international squads, or to go back to training, or go on vacation, whatever it is they do. Those they call them the international breaks, because it's typically when you're doing your Euro Cup lead up qualifiers, your World Cup qualifiers, those kind of things. But you're not condensing soccer into 12 weeks. And this is not just solely motivated by revenue and just having in a 12-week window, but also the overall health and fitness of soccer players, and not trying to have them fly cross country and play match here, play match there, and try to get as many games in a short window as possible. But it's more about spreading it out.
And like, this is something that they've been talking about doing this for like a quarter of a century. But again, as we said in the last segment, this is the time where they're saying, all right, there's a gap.
There's an opening,
and we
here.
can shoot this gap right now with all of the turmoil in the NCAA, with the revenue sharing cap that's going to be put in place. And you could see soccer and football right now breaking away out of the umbrella of the NCAA and saying, we're going to do it on our own. And right now, like, part of the conversations are U.S. Soccer Federation may put as many as 7 figures, 8 figures
equity into college soccer,
into the player pool for revenue sharing amongst these 32 schools, and then start building from there. And then say, because they got a couple billionaires that are invested in United States soccer, and saying, all right, how are we going to continue to grow this thing? And doing it in the 2-semester calendar. They want to start growing the game in that way for collegiate soccer, because that, as you said, with the calendar that they play in the international game, it's a deterrent for some of the athletes to come over to the States and play soccer over here.
Yeah.
One, because you can play professionally
and make
when
money
you're 15 years old over there. And then 2, it's it's janky. They see it as a janky, antiquated system that we play American soccer over here. And so how do you grow it to match that? This could be the alleyway. And there's a lot of people that are saying the best avenue may be this soccer joins FIFA, which that would be wild.
And the interesting part about this
that's
is
not corrupt at all.
Well, collegiate soccer would be an opportunity for, let's say you've got some American star. Let's say Christian Pulisic, he goes to insert West Coast school here. Halfway through the season, the transfer portal opens up, the international break, and some Chelsea comes in and goes, "We're very interested in him. We don't want to wait.
Yeah.
We will give your school a transfer fee. You will lose that player, but we will buy the rights to that player, and he will become a professional player for us."
Yeah.
That's, we give you $3 million. Period. Done. And it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting model, but
that would be that a mid-season transfer.
Yeah.
Because then you're really becoming professional, the professionalization of
but
sports.
That's I mean, you're talking about, you see transfers for kids that are 14 years old.
Yeah.
It's not like we don't see this already. Like, soccer is very different as far as like the age runouts and like when guys can actually become very good players. Like, it's not totally uncommon to see a 17 or 18-year-old
Sure.
phenom starting for the biggest clubs in the world.
Yeah.
But to me, it more than anything, what this signals is it not the
UCLA would be out west too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, squirrel moment.
Well, but they're Big Ten.
Yep.
So they're in that umbrella. But the idea of this is intriguing to me, simply because it shows that they're not afraid to look at opportunities. And I think this is what all of like the non-revenue generating sports should be looking at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you need to, like, gymnastics. Gymnastics should sync their calendar up with the international gymnastics calendar and likely become a part of the international governing body. Everybody operates under the same guidelines, the same rules, and you basically use it as a development pipeline that also gets you paid.
The interesting part from this is men's soccer in the United States big enough to keep the momentum going? The only way that this really works is if like U.S. Soccer is subsidizing it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that women's soccer may be more ready for this?
Yeah, particularly in the U.S.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's
no other country is going to do this because they don't have college sports. But women's game may be, because of the popularity of the U.S. women's team, is actually far greater than men's team.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with the women's game if this super conferencing happens? Because like we look at it, Oregon State men's soccer, really good,
mm-hmm.
right? Are they going to keep, if they have a 32 team super league, are they going to keep like a University of Portland women's team out of it? Or is this going to be like an opt-in where
international stars?
We've already seen in this model, how is this going to, and this could be the big split of football and basketball operate on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else, you just kind of roll out your own league, your own entity. We could see it in baseball. We could see it in track. We could see it in soccer, to where it is the elites kind of continue to play amongst themselves and opt into these essential super leagues that you're seeing in soccer. It would, and you're going to be breaking away from your traditional conference that you're in order to do this. You are going to be breaking in those ties. They mean a whole heck of a lot, man. Those conference ties mean a ton. That may be the biggest hurdle that these schools that are thinking and talking about having a super league of soccer to kind of generate their own revenue and be self-sustaining. That could be what holds them back, because Ohio State in the Big Ten, that means a whole heck of a lot. And I find it interesting that the Big Ten is one of the conferences in full that is considering breaking away. And you didn't hear boo about any of the SEC schools being a part of this 32-team Super League. Because you're telling me that, Texas or Georgia
mm-hmm.
or Florida don't have soccer teams that that could be good enough to play with this? Yeah, they could. The SEC is staying out of this conversation right now.
It's again, the interesting thing to me is that they are exploring these opportunities
Yeah.
and trying to link with these international governing bodies because they are looking for guidance, of which the NCAA is not capable of providing.
You're going to find real quick, we've been talking about what is the beginning of the end. When these things actually start to happen, that's the end of the NCAA.
Yeah. And I mean, I think
Done.
we are careening down this path. I would be shocked if soccer, number one, didn't pursue a model similar to this, if it's not the exact one. But if other sports like baseball didn't follow suit. Now, the tennis has already got an association with the International Tennis Governing Body, and I could see that going even further. I think what the NCAA will ultimately end up existing for is rowing, fencing, the Olympic sports that
I think it is Division III sports.
Yeah.
Division III, Division II sports. That's what it'll
where the governing bodies just aren't.
But this will be, look, it'll be devastating to Division III and Division II schools. It devastating. If you are Western Oregon or Linfield or Lewis and Clark, Willamette, any of those small schools right here in our own area, they get a big chunk from the men's NCAA tournament. And that means a lot to those smaller schools. It will be devastating when they all break away.
They're going to have to get very creative.
It's going to change
and how they go about it, and what matters.
And we talk about we care about the Division I schools a lot because they're the high profile ones.
There's a lot
most
more
of the people
ones.
that you know, most of the people that you work with, they didn't play there. They played at D3, D2 schools.
So it's
welcome to the NAIA.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to kind of see where this all goes. Well, speaking of interesting to see where it all goes, folks over at ESPN are taking a look forward to the college football season already, and some folks over there, including Bill Connolly, is a little bit down on where the Ducks are going to be and maybe due for some regression based on their roster going into next season. We'll get into that and more, but first, here's the Big Kahuna with Sports Center Update.
You ever had a Big Kahuna burger?
Now, from the Fan Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Crunch Fitness. Memberships as low as $9.99 per month. Find your Crunch time in Portland, Vancouver, and online at crunch.com. First on The Fan, the Trailblazers unable to out-tank the Jazz last night in Salt Lake City, holding on for a 2-point win. Now they move on to Washington to face the league-worst Wizards tomorrow night. Portland will be without Robert Williams III, DeAndre Ayton, and Matisse Thybulle. The Blazers are 25-33, 4.5 games out of the play-in, and the 9th worst record in the league. ESPN's Pete Thamel reporting Cal defensive coordinator and former Oregon linebacker Peter Sirmon leaving to become the linebackers coach for the New Orleans Saints. Chiefs GM Brett Veach says the team expects tight end Travis Kelce to return for the 2025 season. Seahawks GM John Schneider announced 9-time Pro Bowl offensive tackle Jason Peters is retiring after 19 seasons. He was undrafted in 2004. Steelers GM Omar Khan said today the team wants to get a deal done with wide receiver George Pickens as he is set to enter the final year of his rookie deal. Multiple reports say the Commanders have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade, and the Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir, have agreed to a 4-year extension, reportedly worth up to $60.2 million with $32 million guaranteed. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Fan Sports Desk. Listen live or on demand on the Odyssey app, the Fan's desktop player, or tell your smart speaker to play 1080 The Fan.
Tired of getting dinged by subscriptions? We won't send you a bill. Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
Bill Connelly over at ESPN has a pretty interesting article talking about the college football returning production across all 136. Yes, they're now up to 136 teams in Division I college football. And what this basically does is who's coming back.
Yeah.
And when you look at the list, there's a couple of pretty intriguing ones at 1 and 2. Number 1, Clemson, who is not a team with Dabo Swinney, who's been a guy who goes into the portal all that much. He is a guy that stays in-house. He is now. He has dipped his toe, as it were, in there.
Yep.
But one of the ones that you have been banging the drum on for the last month here, at the number 2 spot is Arizona State.
Yeah.
They're returning 79% of their overall production, 78% of their offense, and 79% of their defense. That ranks 4th and 2nd nationally.
I think Arizona State is returning, I believe, 18 starters from a year ago. Now, Cam Scattaboo leaves.
It's a big one.
Yup.
But you bring back your best wide receiver. You bring back your quarterback.
Sam Levitt. Yes, they are going, and you continue to improve that roster in a Big 12 that is winnable. I mean, Arizona State. If I am buying a stock, I will buy Arizona State stock because not only do they bring,
you might be able to buy actual stock.
Not only do I buy what they're going to be putting on the field, they didn't lose a single coach in this coaching cycle. Not a single assistant coach left. That is huge when you're bringing back so many guys and you have the same coaches getting their hooks in them and continuing to build and grow. So Arizona State, that is not a surprise to see them that high on this. Not one bit.
No. One thing that maybe will come as a surprise is where the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes fall in here, and the teams that are kind of around them in that range. Remember, 136 teams in Division I right now. Ohio State is 101st. Texas is 103rd. Georgia is 105th, and the Oregon Ducks at 109th.
Well, and you also have Ole Miss in there too, is like 113th. I mean, those are in Miami, I think is 75th in this. So this is just returning production. But if you take a look at the schools that Bill Connelly is saying are most likely to regress this year, those are the schools, right? You're going to see a lot of college football playoff teams in there. And here is the thing with when you have these rankings and you're losing things and you're just identifying returning production, is that's what recruiting means, right? Because remember, last year, there were these same thoughts about, look, Oregon is going to have to replace Bucky Irving, Bo Nix, Troy Franklin. Those 3 pretty big guys that they had to replace last year, right? They found a way to do it. This is where, but they also had returning Jordan James, an entire offensive line, Tez Johnson, Terrence Ferguson. The reason why Oregon is so low on this is because of the fact that you lose Dylan Gabriel, 4 of your top 5 leading receivers, 2 leading rushers. Like, there's a lot of offensive production. And then on the defensive side,
offensive linemen.
Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell, Jeffrey Bassa, you're losing Jordan Birch. You're replacing the secondary. I mean, there's a lot that they are trying to replace. Well, I think they're still working on the Kobe Savage, but Tysheem Johnson and Brandon Johnson, you're going to be losing a lot, no doubt about it.
What's interesting about this is Bill Connelly is very, very much analytically driven. I believe he's the creator of their SP Plus at ESPN, if I remember right, their projection model, of which he has altered drastically over the past 4 years because of COVID eligibility, because of the viability and volatility of the transfer portal. I found this pretty interesting. In 2021, the national returning production averages across the country were 76.7%. The biggest part of that was COVID. COVID added a year of eligibility, and you throw the red shirt on top of that, you saw significantly less turnover. because of that extra year of eligibility. That dropped drastically from 76.7 in 21 to 62.9 the next year.
Dang.
Since then, it has gone down to 60.2 and 59.9. From 62.9 to 59.9. That's pretty stable drop. This year is going from 59.9 to 53.7. Why? COVID eligibility has run out.
Well, and the transfer portal is ramping up. It's the two things that are kind of coinciding together is that all the extra COVID kids, they're all cycling out, and transfer portal numbers continue to rise.
They've
up.
gone from 10.7 transfers in 2023 per roster. It's up to 14.1. That's a 40% growth. That's not nothing.
Look, that's a big number.
Yeah.
That is a huge number. And look, there's another cycle that's going to happen again. Transfer portal will open up after spring ball finishes up. And all of this movement around and the returning production as it pertains to college football, the transfer portal works two ways, right? Because guys will leave, but you also bring talent in. And there's a lot that is missing from a lot of the contenders. And this is what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the kind of the world of college, how much of an outlier Ohio State was last year in that the guys that they had
everyone came back,
come back, and the guys that they brought in through the transfer portal, it loaded up, man. And this year, it's gonna, if you're talking about a big regression, all of those teams that were listed, they also didn't lose a lot of games.
No.
Oregon went 13-1.
Yes.
The regression would be 12-2. I mean, keep things into perspective here of what this is.
And the way that Connolly is highlighting this, he says the teams that are most likely to regress: Ohio State, Ole Miss, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Miami, SMU, South Carolina.
And that does, but this is the thing: recruit well. All of those schools recruit at a ridiculously high level. Some of the highest level recruiters in the country. Also look at the retention rates of their rosters. Not a lot of guys are leaving out of the transfer portal from those rosters. Ole Miss, kind of the outlier because they just, Lane Kiffin dubs himself the portal king. They bring a lot of guys in, but all of those schools, they fill holes through their elite recruiting, being top 5, top 10 recruiters via the transfer portal. And every single year, those teams, since the portal has been around, all of them have gone in to supplement their roster with those portal guys. And Oregon is replacing Dylan Gabriel's production. They're not dipping in the portal yet for a quarterback. They're going to let spring ball play out because they think that they've got 3 guys that can compete there, 4 guys that can compete there at the quarterback position. They're going to let that play out. They could dip into the portal, come the spring transfer window as well.
But
right now,
anything can shake out over the next month and a half, whatever.
Yep.
Wasn't that portal open up?
And it ends after, I think it's April.
Yeah, so isn't it like
or
second
May,
week,
maybe May.
third week, April, something like that.
But no, it's got to be after all the spring, I think it's after the spring period, so I think it's May.
Okay.
But I mean, look,
the interesting note here,
a lot of the holes have already been filled. He's looking at returning production. You fill those through the transfer portal of bringing guys in
and lifting guys up. For me, the interesting thing here for Oregon, this is the one that stands out to me. Every defensive lineman and defensive back that saw more than 100 snaps for Oregon last year is gone.
Well,
that's a pretty sizable change, and it's not something you can't overcome. That's where you develop the depth. That's where you talk about what Lanning's recruits are going to end up being.
Bring in the top safety in the portal.
Yes.
From Purdue.
100%. And that's where it's like, it's going to be interesting to see kind of like what the models of this stuff looks like going forward when you're talking about impacts of transfers.
Like Mekhi Hughes, the nation's leading returning rusher in college football. He transferred to Oregon from Tulane. Paragon, the USC offensive lineman, Isaiah World, the lineman from Nevada. Both those guys
of the world
transfer in. The Texas State monster, whatever that they brought in. They've been busy trying to fill those holes. And look, a lot of it is, what do you got coming back next year? There's a lot of guys that they ended up redshirting last year. Blake Purchase as an edge rusher, played as a freshman, redshirted last year as a sophomore. Those guys are going to be pivotal for their growth moving forward.
All right, coming up as we put a nice little bow on today's show, Luka Doncic is going to play his former team for the first time since being traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. Are you going to tune in and care, even if the game's in L.A.? Danny Dusty, Danny the Fan. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers, guy that still feels gross to say, take on his former team, the Dallas Mavericks, in Los Angeles tonight. It's the marquee game of the night. Everybody I've talked to so far this morning, it's when talking about this game in the NBA, is like, do you think Luka scores 40 or 50?
11.
I think he saves that for
in Dallas.
I'm going to tune in. I'm going to watch because he's going to sneer and he's going to go at their necks.
I think it happens in this one. He's gonna get wound up when he returns to Dallas, and all bets are off. Then, like, you could see him chuck up 50 shots, but I don't know if we're gonna see 50 points out of Luka.
I will say,
who's gonna guard him?
Pushing Luka into the corner. What ends up happening? I don't care what kind of shape he's in. I don't care what his mentality is. I don't care what anything else. That dude is that dude.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's a 30-10-10 guy in the playoffs for his career. He's one of the best playoff performers we've ever seen in the game.
Did you see that report today that was, what was it? After what Jaylen Brown did to Luka Doncic in the finals is what made the Mavericks think that Luka wasn't going to be the guy.
Luka in the finals went like 28, 9, and 8.
I think he had 29. I think he averaged 29 points.
29. It was 29, 8, and 9, or 29, 9, and 8. The only thing he didn't do was shoot well from 3.
It makes it look even worse.
I mean, whoever is running the PR team for the Dallas Mavericks should be taken out back and Goodfellow. They have made a wrong turn every single way.
It's not good.
It is the level of bumbling and stumbling that they have done in this has just been insane. I'm 100% watching this game.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the return to Dallas, but look, we got, what's the other games that are on tonight? We got Duke Miami tonight.
Yes.
College basketball.
Mhm.
Maybe if the Blazers were losing games, I'd be more interested in that.
I mean, there's some intriguing games.
I'll probably
Cavs,
watch.
Magic, Bucks, Rockets, Suns, Grizzlies. Like there's some intriguing games in the NBA, but
yeah, I mean,
Mavs, Lakers, and it's the late night TNT game. It's gonna
I'll be there.
There's gonna be some juice, baby.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it.
100%.
I'm definitely gonna watch it. It's way higher on the list, and I think Duke Miami's really early. I think it's a really early
I'd
game.
probably rather watch that than the early TNT game. Well, Cavs, Magic is early TNT game. I'll two screen that.
All right. Damn.
But I am very much like I think they go to Dallas next week. I think it's when it is next week, 10 days, something like that.
No, I thought it was in April.
Was it? I thought it was sooner than that.
I don't know.
Maybe I was looking at a different matchup.
If that game is in 10 days, buckle up, baby, because we're in for a dandy.
I mean, there's just not much of the season left. That's why I was like, I'm almost certain it was coming up pretty
No.
soon. You're right. It's not until April.
Yeah, I had my eyes on that one because I was like, call me when he gets back to Dallas.
I thought it was going to be they have a Texas road trip, and I just assumed it would be in there.
Yeah.
They have San Antonio twice and Houston. That's what it was.
Boo.
Yeah. Oops. That's my
All right, that does it for us today. Up next, you got 4 hours of power from their mouths to your ears. Prime time with Osgood Souk. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Bye.